Good morning, good afternoon, from wherever you're watching around the world. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Today we're joined by webinar favorite, friend of the program, Ivan Novick. Hey, Ivan. And
Hey,
we're
hey.
also joined by, sorry, Ivan.
No, I was saying, hey, how's it going today, Jay?
It's going well. It's going well. Thank you. I think you and I are both excited to have special guest speaker from AceMQ, Scott Sternloff. Hey, Scott.
Hi, everybody. This is Scott Sternloff. Thanks for having me here today.
Awesome. Now we're seeing a lot of folks continuing to jump on in. So we just have one housekeeping item before we hand it off to today's speakers. We'd love to encourage any and all questions. So if you have a question for our speakers, submit them using the questions tab and we'll answer them today. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to you, Ivan.
All right, thanks. Thanks everybody for joining. Welcome to the RabbitMQ webinar with myself and Scott. We are broadcasting from deep underground today. Just kidding, but the video is actually down. So our webinar platform, the video is down. So we are able to show the screen share and you are able to hear us, but you're not going to see us, our faces chatting. So just so you're aware. We'll keep a screen share up here so you guys can have something up on the screen. So let's get started. Scott, welcome to the webinar, and it'd be great if you could just introduce yourself really quickly.
Absolutely. So, Scott Sternloff, I'm an enterprise solutions architect. I have been a consultant and in computers for over 40 years. I'm the practice lead for AceMQ and responsible for all of our key RabbitMQ customers right now. And I've been working with RabbitMQ in its earliest 3.0 days. 3.4 was the most common one I think I've touched, but I've been with it for a very long time. So very excited to be engaged and to talk about it today.
So is it fair to say you're in essence, you're consulting, right? You work in consulting. Is that correct?
Right, consulting services, partner support, engagement, things around architecture and infrastructure, best practices, how to scale and leverage it with modern paradigms around the cloud and hybrid solutions and things like that.
And how long have you been doing this kind of work, Scott?
Oh my gosh, over 25 years.
Over 20.
And with in the key new areas that are out there, at least 10.
Okay. And you spend a lot of time with RabbitMQ as well.
The vast majority of my time. Yes, absolutely.
Great, great.
It is, we do actually get engaged a lot in other technologies, but it's from a RabbitMQ centric approach where we look at it in the platform and in the stack and, how it fits with our clients and helping them to maximize the value of it and make sure that it's the right use case for RabbitMQ and how to use it.
All right, great. So everybody, welcome to the webinar. So today we're going to interview Scott, and we're going to walk through lots of details about RabbitMQ, and really from the perspective of being successful deploying RabbitMQ into enterprise and what it takes to do it. Because obviously Scott's been doing this kind of work for 25 years, and we want to pick his brain and share that knowledge with all of you guys about how you can be more successful with RabbitMQ. So let's see, just to get us into the mood and to get started and warmed up, I took a screenshot of the rabbitmq.com website where there's a wide range of tutorials. And I was trying to understand or trying to communicate here, and maybe Scott, you can help me out. What do you see here as the basic functions of RabbitMQ, just to get people started?
This
And
one made me smile.
yeah, how simplistic is this tutorial set versus how is this just like, can you just walk through this real quick as what does RabbitMQ actually do?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's a messaging platform, and in the more recent releases, it's got some very exciting things around the idea of a message container, but specifically what it is what's described on the screen. So hello world, it's the simplest thing you can do. It's you publish a message into a queue, a consumer can pick it up. It's foundational. It's the basic flow of things, and you make sure the setup's working, shows the devs how it works, the idea that you're getting something, putting into a first in out queue, and you can consume it. The next one, the idea of a work queue, competing consumers. You're distributing the tasks among the workers. So there's one job, one consumer, but it's parallelism. The producer sends the tasks into a shared queue. Multiple consumers can pull from it. Each message goes to only one worker. It's where it shines. It's load distribution, whether it's, image processing, file, whatever it's
So,
going to be that's in there.
yeah.
This pattern ensures no task is repeated.
So hang on there. So if I have like two microservices, let's say I have one microservice to place an order on an e-commerce website, and I have a second microservice which sends an email. Could I use this competing consumer perhaps to work to basically pass the message from the order queue or from the order microservice to the email microservice?
So you could, if you were going to have it where they're pulling from the same one, and there's something like the type of order is in there, so they can work more than one type of work. But if what they're actually working is specific to the type of client, then you're going to probably want to route it to something specific. You're going to want to have it be picked up by that microservice specific to that unit of work, and that's something we're going to look at more toward like pattern 4 or pattern 5.
Okay. Okay, fine. Let's talk about number 3.
Sure. And on the third side, so a pub sub, but in this scenario, it's a fan out. So, one message, many recipients, and you're going to send it in many places. So there's an exchange, which is what you actually do publish to for Rabbit first, and it's called a fan out. And in this case, it's multiple queues that are going to receive the message. And it can send with routing requirements, as we'll mention in a moment, or without. But if you want to broadcast, if you want to do notifications, if multiple systems need to receive the same message at the same time, this is a great way to have a distributed architecture where they work independently but get the same events. And key to that is they're getting their own copy of the events. They're not the same event in different queues. Each one's getting that actual message.
Got it. I'm starting to get it. And now let's go to routing.
Sure. So routing in here, so it receiving messages selectively. It's targeted delivery based upon a routing key. So the idea of this pub sub, but now we're selective. The exchange uses that key to send the message only to the queues that match. It can be a wildcard, there can be some regex, there can be, multiple queues that get that based on the same routing key. But the key here is you could do it based on severity, based on region, based on patterns that give you tight control. It's very, very easy to be well defined, but it separates the queue still from the exchange in the sense that the queue still only does the work it's given, but the routing define what it's going to receive.
Okay. Okay. And then number 5, topics.
So topics, it's very flexible matching. So you can have hierarchical systems. You can take topics, they take the routing, they kind of take it up a notch. So you've got wildcarding and matching patterns for the routing key. So, you can say like us.app.frontend. Like if you have the front end of something, you could be the us.app, the eu.app, and you can have a client that subscribes to wildcards or very specifically only wants, say, us.pound. It's going to get just the ones that are for it, or it's going to get all of them that matter. So you can have complex and distributed microservices with intelligent filtering. You can choose how and what they're going to receive very well. You can delineate those.
Okay, got it. And then how about number 6?
Last one, RPC. So core pub sub concept back in the ESB concept. A lot of these things, the terms are interchangeable, but in a request reply pattern, you've got synchronous behavior essentially. A client sends a message over. There's some work that's done by the consumer that picks it up, and then it responds. And it's great because there's correlation to it. And so you can say, I'm blocking, waiting for a specific thing to come back to me. That's going to be delivered to me because I made this request. And it can be dynamic in nature, and there's a temporary correlation queue that's built out there with a response that gets delivered to it. And it can be two asynchronous messages. You can publish something and then have yourself listening for a defined reply, but it's the idea of request reply.
Okay. Okay. And then now I do have one more set of functions. Now these functions are streaming. So can you compare and contrast what we had on the previous slide to when we say streaming? What are we talking about?
So when you're streaming something in, when you publish it, you're appending it to the end of that stream. It just keeps getting added there. And then the consumers that are there are going to receive the messages that are published as they came off the stream. So when you do offset tracking, there is where you are as a consumer relative to that stream for what's available historically through the current of that stream. So it offsets and it's aware of where it is in that stream, and you have the ability to work with offsets against that as a consumer.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so let me go back to this one, and what I want to pivot to now is use cases and customer use cases, and in particular, I wanted to double click into some different industries and say, for example, if I was in financial services, if I was in payment processing, or if I was in real-time trading, how, have you ever worked with a customer in this sector before, and why would they want to use RabbitMQ? Well, how does RabbitMQ play in for trading or for payment processing or any kind of financial thing like that?
Well, I mean, it's excellent. And the idea of the trading industry for real-time trading, the ability to define queues for, let's say you've got a front end and a real-time trading app, and they have a current state, and there are things executing orders, getting real-time updates to the things they care about, getting change notifications and things that processed or didn't process, so they have that awareness. It's a great way to provide things and to not only have generic things like we mentioned, like just core updates to your stocks and things that are going on, but if you're making a specific request that has to be responded to in a certain period of time, you can do a request reply with a timeout. You can publish updates from the server side to all of the connected clients so that they can see updates and keep real-time critical data there with a time to live that says the information I'm receiving is only good for, say, 15 seconds so that I'm always getting current visible information. Um, and the guaranteed delivery aspect of it is critical too. The idea that when I publish, it's not mentioned in here, but the idea that when I publish something, I'm literally handing off to Rabbit something that it's saying I received. So I publish a message in and hit an exchange that goes to a queue, and my client is told, you did publish this, I have it. And that's a guarantee that from the client side, I don't have to question whether or not it's stored and durable there. And then it does its work. And the same goes the other way on the consumer side. I can take something off of a queue and I can then say that it's worked. I can acknowledge that message, meaning that I took the work, I got this message, I did the work on it, and I'm acknowledging that it's complete successfully, or I'm knocking it back in because I failed. And it gives you a way to treat it as a guaranteed infrastructure for messaging. You're not having to question or make a wrapper or be in doubt as to whether or not the data that you've passed through RabbitMQ really is there. It's a system of trust that you can guarantee and be confident working with.
Okay, now let me ask you a kind of a naive question. Could I mean, in my mind, I could also just put these records in a database and say like, hey, here's some work to do, put it in a database, and then someone else would fetch it from a database. Have you ever seen someone try and do that, and why using a proper messaging system like Rabbit would be better than kind of storing information in a database that's tracking this kind of work?
So I have. There's a lot of there's so many things we could talk about there. I mean, the key one is it's not just that database is reliable. There's that concept, but in a distributed architecture where you need clustering and high availability, guaranteed storage, and you are, from unit of work perspective, if you're consuming things, you don't want anyone else to touch it. There's contention. There's locking on tables. There's whether or not from a reliability standpoint, when you put something in there and it's doing its logging and recording things, that if there was a failure of some kind, that the state you're in when you come back up. A lot of it is competing contention and performance. Performance is a critical aspect of Rabbit. It was built and designed to be extremely performant relative to a lot of other messaging technologies. And as such, especially in some of the newer cases with streaming, you just get incredible performance without suffering for guaranteed storage and reliable messaging. It has the framework and the infrastructure to ensure that you are able to use it as a reliable messaging provider. Whereas with a database, the table constructs and things like that, the complexities of that, you just can't get the same kind of guarantee for locking, for single consumption, for publishing and doing it to scale while at the same time pulling data out of that table. It becomes very complicated.
Oh, I get it. It makes total sense. Like basically, it sounds to me like trying to do a work like this and use a database as a tracking is a total hack. And this is like a using a message queue is a fit for purpose, built for purpose solution that you're going to just get the maximum performance and capability.
And
So
actually, you bring up a really interesting case. We've actually, in our experience, a lot of the clients we have are either new to RabbitMQ or they've brought it on themselves and they're just not experienced with how to make it enterprise ready and how to address some of the scaling. So it works out of the box. It's beautiful. It's phenomenal. But then when they get up to scale, they don't know if they need to be clustered, how it should be configured, some of the parameters and things you can change with best practices. And as a result, they start to try and resolve issues they see by doing something like putting a wrapper around it with a database, putting around APIs that guarantee that the front and the back end folk, as opposed to addressing correctly configuring Rabbit, which is one of our core offerings.
Right. And when you talk about clustering, especially we've got RabbitMQ 3 and RabbitMQ 4, right? Now 4 obviously is later. And when you say clustering on RabbitMQ 4, what's the actual implementation you're talking about?
So when I'm specific to RabbitMQ4.
Yeah.
So
So
with
talk about,
RabbitMQ4, they've deprecated classic queue clustering, and that means that the traditional clustering that was out there for classic queues and classic queues v2, which it was an improvement and a shift around the idea of lazy queuing and that they've made that where it's no longer mirrored in RabbitMQ4. The distribution now is quorum queue based,
or
and under the covers, it can be Amnesia or it can be Capri, but it is Raft based quorum queues, and they're more resilient. They recover better. They can handle a lot of the HA events that are concerned and recover from topology changes like node loss and that. So it's a real shift in clustering.
right. So I mean, to visualize that, I'm sure a lot of customers use either virtual machines or containers, but if let's just visualize it with just plain old servers, bare metal servers, right? So, for example, if I had, how many servers would I need to create a cluster?
So to be a cluster that's quorum capable, you need three servers. You
Three
you
servers,
can say that something is quorum, but it's not quorum until you reach three servers.
right? So three because you need like a tiebreaker to see or something like
Exactly.
that.
There always need to be an odd number of servers. You need a tiebreaker to have the majority rule.
And can it be more than three?
It can be. It can have to be more than three, but you do want to go up in odd numbers. And it's a short version. I don't know. Unfortunately, we don't have a slide for it, but it's a core idea. If you've got a group of servers, you can any number of servers is allowed, depending on how you scale. But if you want to ensure a tiebreaker, you always want the majority of the servers to be online and agree they see each other so that there's not a possibility of a split brain scenario.
So simplistically speaking, I'm building a trading system and I've bought three servers, right? Then I can build a quorum queue. And then if I write the data, let's say I say trade, I need a trade to be processed. So I'm going to write it to, which server will it go to? Does that get automatically kind of round robin?
So yeah, so there's the source of truth. So when you connect to RabbitMQ through a load balancer, depending, like you said, bare metal service, so having a load balancer in front of it, it's going to get routed to one of the three nodes in those three servers. And depending on which server houses the master of that quorum queue, it can get proxied over to that other server, and then that is where it will actually be stored. And then it will mirror itself or replicate itself to one or more of the other servers so that it's highly available and also performant for reads.
Right. So you just keep pushing in those trades orders, people keep consuming them, and then if one of the three servers goes out, you keep operating with the remaining two. Am I correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, okay. And now, since I brought up the point about bare metal, when you work, let's stick with financial for a moment. When you worked in these kind of payments and financials, did people use bare metal or did they use virtual?
Yeah, historically with 3.x, it was bare metal, and a long time ago, it switched over to virtualized environments. So, you have a VM that is out there and now in the cloud where it was being installed. And more recently, it's more popular to go containerized, which was crucial to some of the changes with Quorum because of the need to be able to handle a node coming in or out without blocking everything that's going on. Historically, in whether it was a bare metal or a container, if your classic queues had a change that didn't match what we call policy, something we haven't spoken of, but if it didn't match that mirroring requirement, then when it was synchronizing, you would stop publishing. You wouldn't disconnect. You wouldn't stop. Or consumers wouldn't stop, but they couldn't get any data through until it caught up to meet those mirroring requirements. With quorum queues, now those three, you can support that. So it's really well defined, and it's critical to a lot of the container work that people do today. Your question, Docker, Kubernetes, if you're doing it in VMs, it literally allows you to bring in new nodes, or if a node fails, to recover from it without stopping the flow of messages.
So at this point, 2025, what would be your decision tree? When to go with bare metal, when to go with virtual, when to go with container?
Bare metal is rare. I don't really have a really strong use case for bare metal, except for some customers we had in the government sector that actually need to do embedded systems where RabbitMQ is behind the scenes.
Okay,
And in cases where they're not able, they don't have, say, a vSphere or a Nutanix or a cloud access, and they need to implement a solution that doesn't have, or it doesn't want the overhead of going in a container. After that, a lot of companies have best practices already. If their standard is to go with Kubernetes and they'd like to deploy that way because they know how to manage and utilize it relative to everything else, that's one big plus. If the, excuse me, if scaling and CI/CD and the idea of rapidly putting out new environments is critical, which is extremely important these days, then that is a very good reason to go the container approach, because you can quickly redeploy new environments, scale out, instead of being multi-tenant, deploy environments for specific customers, or recover or build temporary work environments. It's definitely a great pattern. So it's getting more and more towards containerization. Within some cases, we've seen some performance differences where it was crucial, and it would go back to like a VM with installed locally.
got it. Okay. Now, Scott, you mentioned an embedded use case related to a government. Probably you can't talk in detail about it, but can you give any sense of, for RabbitMQ?
I'm sorry, Evan, I think I lost you.
Yeah. Okay, let me repeat. Can you hear me, Scott?
Yep, sure can.
So you mentioned about the use case in the government for an embedded RabbitMQ, and it got me curious. The trading use case sounds like deep in the data center, where you're in the headquarters, you're doing trading, right, with a super high powerful computer and a super high powerful network. When you say embedded, I'm starting to think about things out in the edge. Have you
Right.
got any examples where RabbitMQ is useful at the edge or in an embedded case? Like what kind of
Absolutely.
roles, what are some of the roles RabbitMQ plays in that world?
So we've seen it in a couple of areas. We've seen it in Dimension One, which was an edge case where an embedded Rabbit system was pulling some IoT data and had to do secure but guaranteed durable delivery to the infrastructure that was there on the command side. And that is a excellent use case for it because it can stand alone, and it's very tight and it's very performant. And the durable side, recovery, reconnects, item potency, meaning that you're guaranteed to get the event, and if you republish the event, it's okay because it's item potent. That all those concepts fit really well with an embedded version of Rabbit sitting small and available. On the other side, we see it in the gas and light sector with IoT devices that are reporting information that gets aggregated and then published out, and will be reached out and pull stats, and that has been a tremendous use case for us. In fact, we're running a couple of pilots right now that are in that area that could very easily scale and become a standard.
Now, when you say reconnect, so you're talking about what type of hardware are you talking about with oil and gas or embedded? Where is RabbitMQ actually running at the client or at the site? Is it
So
it's yeah,
yeah, on the gas and light side, they're actually co-locating it with their equipment, and it's being treated, so it's running MQTT, and it's actually being used to pull that data locally, and then to aggregate or actually send it up, and they get aggregated on their side. So it's co-resident with their edge devices, And there's a one-to-many, so you might have it sitting somewhere in a pipeline area with like 50 to 1,000 devices that are continuously connecting and putting data or looking for command and control type information that it works with, but it's offline. So the devices connect when they will. Some of them are solar driven, so they connect, they store their information, and when they come back up on their schedules, there might be updates that are pushed to them that tell them to do things, and it's sitting there as a go-between that is separated but is very much on the edge.
So I'm trying to visualize this. So when you say pipeline, you're talking about like a gas pipeline.
Absolutely. Yeah, the devices that look at like IoT devices that look at, how many, what's the gas rate, what's the temperature, what's the current setting on the valves, very specific metrics and things that are very much in the IoT side of things where the MQTT framework is not actually being leveraged as much as we thought. And now with the improvements in MQTT and Rabbit, there's a lot of excitement for being able to do things in smaller installations that are just extremely reliable with QoS and things like that.
Okay. And then so you've got this like potentially solar powered device out there at the gas pipeline. And what I gathered from what you're saying is not only is it collecting metrics, but I think you said it's receiving commands as to what the device should do.
Right. So yeah, the asynchronous two-way communications. There's a lot of facilities in Rabbit and the MQTT protocol as well that allow you to do that. AMQP, just the queuing concept of this is stuff that I'm sending out, this is stuff I'm receiving that I'll get when I connect, and things can have a time to live. I can do messages that are distributed across a whole set of devices. So I can have literally tiering of messaging that can apply to everyone, apply to a subset. Everyone turn on. We're going to restart the schedule 20 minutes. We're going to go every 20 minutes and just send one message out that everyone's going to update to, or a class of service. All the systems on this pipeline that match this known routing key, all of you are going to close right now. Things like that.
So you can be completely disconnected from the network for some time and then come back online and then start picking up messages.
Yes, and absolutely, that one's crucial because on the IT side, a lot of the devices that connect to us don't have very long internal buffering. They might at most, some of them have an hour, some of them have a day, but after they get past that period of time, if they can't get back or if they're disconnected from the primary systems, those messages actually can be lost because they roll off. So visibility to critical analytics to errors and things that might have occurred may be lost on some devices. And so the ability to connect to Rabbit, store them there and persist them with ordered history is crucial.
Okay. Now you mentioned MQTT protocol and AMQP protocol. So what is this concept of protocols and what are these two protocols and what's their comparison or their use case? How do you know which protocol to pick?
So the difference is, so MQT is a message queuing telemetry protocol, and AMQP is an advanced messaging queuing protocol. They sound a lot alike. MQTT, though, is very lightweight. It's for devices, unreliable networks, things that make it very much IoT. It's designed for that. AMQP, on the other hand, is feature rich. It's got a lot of capabilities for robust and reliable, complex messaging scenarios. So, an example, like if you have limited bandwidth, MQTT is ideal because it's very lightweight. Um, if you are going to want to scale, it's lightweight and it's easy to implement. So a large number of devices, millions of connections have been known to be seen out there. And depending on what your needs are, MQTT and IoT could be a much more logical way. On the other side, with AMQP, message routing, some security, things that happen on routing on the broker side and scaling make it a very valuable one. And actually, it's a little bit more on the advanced side, but there's more than one AMQP protocol. There's AMQP 0.91, which is what historically Rabbit's based on, and there's the AMQP 1.0 standard, which is getting more heavily used. And with 4.0 now, with its internal message container, it supports them both, and all the other protocols that are out there that it has some JMS features. and other capabilities that now can interoperate in a lot of ways. There's some very exciting opportunities that didn't exist before that are being opened up with the current and near-term RabbitMQ.
Okay. Now, Scott, I know that in this slide here it says Tanzu RabbitMQ, and we all know RabbitMQ is open source, and there's open source RabbitMQ, and there's Tanzu RabbitMQ. Since we're both well knowledgeable on this topic, can you share what do you think are some of the key differences between the Tanzu RabbitMQ and open source RabbitMQ, and how are those differences helping enterprise customers when they shift from open source to Tanzu?
Now, this is an interesting topic, and I don't know what areas the everyone that's joined in is from, but it's worth spending a few minutes and learning about Tanzu RabbitMQ, and I'm going to tell you why. Open source RabbitMQ is just that, and it's the core of all of RabbitMQ. The idea of an open source RabbitMQ and how it's built, it's there, it's available. Download it, keep with the current versions, take advantage of the new features. Tanzu, however, takes it a step further. It's enterprise grade in a couple of ways. One, you look at Kubernetes, you want to use the operating the Helm chart that are there. There's the warm schema replication, which is a standby replication capability, which means I've built a system, it's running in there, it's in Kubernetes, and I've got my cluster defined. It's my enterprise go-to environment. I need a DR answer. What is that going to be? And how am I going to leverage it? With
DR,
that,
another data center? When you say DR, you mean like to another
yeah,
data
another
center?
another data center, something that's separate from me. So if I have a serious failure or a problem, and it could be, it could be another HA cluster right next to me. But if I need an alternate that I can rely on if something happens, what do? RabbitMQ, the open source version, you can use federation, you can use shoveling, but you've got challenges. You've got, did I create a new queue? Are there new exchanges? What are the changes in the routing keys if I did something like that? If I've consumed data, how do I have visibility that what's over there has already been processed as close as I can to what happened in my current live cluster? This is a built solution, purpose built for handling that scenario that allows you not to try and solve all of those problems, which I personally have had to build for many of the customers we've had because it didn't exist before. And with this, it's like a gift you're getting that solves the vast majority of those issues so that when you switch over to the other data center, it's there and as close as it can be, network connectivity, your bandwidth, everything else, how much traffic's flowing through at the time when something dropped and how much of it had been shifted over, but it gets you a near real time, ready to go RabbitMQ like it was there and allows you to continue working. And then the rest of the systems can catch up where historically it's almost like a bare metal build over there. Okay, well, everything else is using it as your your core tier for messaging. You're going to have it up. If your schema is very dynamic, then you're going to have to import your old schema and all the users, the exchanges, the bindings, the queues, all the stuff you have there. And also, as everybody reconnects, build out all of the definitions and then start running traffic through it, but start running it through it as if there was nothing there. It's a huge paradigm shift where, if you're looking going in the cloud and you're not sure if you want to do it and you have, you're working and if you want to leverage containerization, but if you want to take away the cost of ownership to build out and plan for how to recover from a brand, in a DR side where Rabbit wasn't there and you couldn't plan on the idea of backing it up, shutting it down, backing up, moving it over and bringing it online. It just solves so many things. It's phenomenal.
What about from the Tanzu version from the perspective of network efficiency, compression?
Oh, absolutely. Another exciting thing, if you are using Rabbit today and you're looking at the sizing and performance between your nodes, what networking bandwidth you need, how many servers you need based upon the performance and everything else, there is a compression capability internode in Tanzu RabbitMQ that has been showing substantial improvements in synchronization, proxying, and everything else that happens between the nodes, things that make it clustered. And that offering is unique to Tanzu on the enterprise side. It's built with the idea that you need faster communication between the nodes and them to store messages and confirm that they are removed from the cluster faster. And that's something you can't get in the open source version.
Right. And looking through the documentation, it looks like there's definitely some security enhancements on the Tanzu version, like the FIPS certified version and some other security things around around authentication and things like that.
Yep, I mean, so there's LDAP, there's OAuth 2, there's things around like the idea of going against in the cloud OIDC underneath there.
Some
There,
of the
but on the FIP
TLS,
side, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and some of the TLS optimizations, I believe, as well. Or,
Absolutely. Especially because everyone these days, no one should be using TLS 1.1. 1.2 and 1.3 are there in the newer versions. You're getting OpenSSL 3 behind the covers. But if you're going FIPS and everything, especially depending on your sector, FIPS can be very crucial, especially on the government side. And the new compliance standards, it's not enforced yet, but there are some changes and expectations both to go OpenSSL 3, but also FIPS they've got a new standard that's not enforced yet, but will be sometime soon. And the Tanzu version is well prepared for that.
gotcha. Now let's talk. You mentioned earlier about version 3 and version 4. That in version 4 we use quorum queues. In version 3 there's classic mirror queues. What's involved in an upgrade, and let's talk about the journey for the upgrade, and how can AceMQ help and how can Tanzu help with customers on
Absolutely.
3.1,
And
3.
first, to be clear, quorum queues did exist in 3. In 3.12, 3.13, you could very well be using quorum queues. So it's not something that didn't exist previously. Um, what's changed is with Raft and with the enhancements that have been done, and in the 4.0 onward, and I think 4.1.1 just got released, it's been deprecated. In fact, even in the migration
Which
from
one?
sorry,
Which
go
one was
ahead,
which was deprecated?
classic mirrored queues.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified. So in the most recent version of 3.13 commercially available is 3.13.7. On the Tanzu side, I believe it's 3.13.9. There were some improvements and Tanzu features that were added in that lets you stay on that stack through 2027 for the commercial 2020 Tanzu build. But with quorum queuing, when it switched to 4, mirroring of classic queues was taken away. So the concept doesn't exist. The policies aren't available. You can't even import with it actually. But from an upgrade standpoint, there's a couple of ways that can be done. So there's the idea of a blue-green build out, a fresh environment and installing everything there and building it up from scratch. There's the idea of rolling upgrades or upgrades in place, and there's concerns from a client perspective on, can I do this in real time? Can I support or sustain downtime to do this? And actually, as we speak, even as recently today, I was in a meeting talking with some of the Tanzu team, and they're building out some great blueprints to talk to this more. But the tools exist now to cleanly move over and to have a good plan strategy. And where we can play in is helping you. What are your core requirements? Is it your downtime SLA and minimizing that? Is it do you want is there a way that you could have the blue green have the other system online and available and do a soft launch into that? Can we drain your existing system, bring the other one online, shift over to it, and then shovel the rest of your data from the old one to the real one in a way that matches your use cases? We help you look at your system, how it uses Rabbit, what you need to accomplish, and give you a game plan on not only how to do it, the steps to do it, work with you to test that beforehand, and then to plan for rollbacks and recovery. How do I, if in the outside chance that there is an issue, how do I ensure I stay live and go back so that I don't have any unplanned scenarios or outages that are business affecting?
Gotcha. So now, just to make it super clear, if a user is on RabbitMQ 3 and there's no more patches or security fixes for 3, can they buy Tanzu RabbitMQ and continue to get support for 3?
Yes. So the little clarification on what you're asking, 'cause I understand what you're asking me. If
Yeah.
you are an existing customer using RabbitMQ3, if classic mirrored queues is critical to you, which there are some edge scenarios where that's a very valid thing, but the most common one we're seeing is clients that don't want to incur the development, testing, and scaling, load testing, that type of thing, to get into a new environment, whether they're not comfortable with library changes on their clients, if it works perfectly and they don't see any reason to bring in new features, if they're looking at the total cost of ownership and is there a return on investment switching over to 4, what do they do? And we do have an exciting offering in two fields. One is with RabbitMQ 3.13, it's going to be supported through the end of 2027. And that was a decision made by the Tanzu team for RabbitMQ to ensure that there is a client base and it doesn't feel like they're being left behind because it's not the normal support model. And it lets you basically use your 3.13 code base and know that it'll be compliant. It'll have patches for security, for bugs that are found that are critical for Tanzu customers. So what it means is if you purchase licensing in Tanzu, you can stay with your open source distribution. You can stay on 3.13 and you will have patches all the way through the end of 2027 that can really be a good solution, whether are concerned about your development team, the financial side of, switching over to 4, or just, I've got a large distributed customer base that I don't see any reason to force an upgrade on them to stay compliant.
Okay, got it. Now, since we're on ways that you can help customers, Scott, can you talk a little bit more about AceMQ's, RabbitMQ? What do you sell? What are you offering to customers? What type of packages, services, software do you offer, and what are the benefits for the customers?
Absolutely. So a couple of things there. First and foremost, who we are. So like we said, we're very committed to RabbitMQ. So we're a strategic partner now with Broadcom for RabbitMQ. And services, so consulting services, assessments of your systems, and helping you with reliability, performance, scaling, functionality in your architecture, compliance. And, that's a critical one in a lot of verticals, especially worldwide, for audits and things like that. So helping making sure they're compliant. And one of the things that has been very exciting is we are just recently a managed service partner for RabbitMQ. And what that means is that we actually, from a licensing perspective, the customers that don't need a large footprint, that don't need to have, thousands of cores of licenses, they have a place to go to now. So if you're a customer that has under 72 cores, we're that partner. We are the MSP that can provide for you end-to-end solutions, and we can deliver to you right-sized licensing to meet your needs, which is very, very exciting.
Right. So you can provide the Tanzu RabbitMQ official version for one thing, right? You can provide consulting, right? You will you also manage the environment for somebody if they need help, or how do you do it? Is it like remote check-in
Absolutely.
time to time, or fully
So
managed, or what type of service do
yeah,
you offer?
so we have tiered support. We provide, we can onboard with, and we can actually consult for you. But from a services and a support perspective, we have annual support contracts. We have the ability to be there if you need us on an on-call using our ticketing system and visibility with SLAs as short as, I think the shortest one we have now is a 30-minute response time, and some of them are more towards a day. And those enterprise customers that just need to get someone on. And one of our best practices is that we get familiar with your implementation. We learn your system to the point where we're coming on ready to integrate and to help you with your issues, knowing your solution. And besides that, though, we also do have managed support. So we can be responsible and we can connect and we can observe and get escalations and visibility to your environment, and we can be aware of it. So you don't have to track to it, whether it's in the cloud, it's hybrid, it's on-prem. If you want someone that's external to you, that's an expert to be available and monitor to it, then we absolutely can do that. And then
So
finally, we
yeah,
actually are going to be able to share with and provide a Tanzu platform for those that are looking to move off of their own infrastructure.
Right. Okay, got it. So sounds like pretty much everything somebody might need to be successful with RabbitMQ from a software and a service point of view, you could be the one-stop shop.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Now, there's one of our guests here, Mahmoud, has been patiently waiting with a question. His question is about, it looks a little bit of a technical question we may need to verify on the release notes, but he's asking MQTT, that's IoT protocol 5.1 plugin, is it compatible with the latest RabbitMQ 4.1.1? Is it something we need to check the notes for, or?
It is a check the notes thing because from the MQTT 5 standpoint, we're there, and I know that we support with the newest one with MQTT 5. We've got QoS 0, so at most once we've got QoS 1 at least once. TLS side, it's OAuth 2. We can support clean and non-clean sessions, message expiry intervals, and things around that. But on the 5.1 feature set, and if it's there out on the release, on 4.1.1, I'm just not certain or not. I'll definitely
Okay.
have to check back at that and we can follow up with you.
We'll get Mahmoud's contact info, Mahmoud, and we'll get back to you on that after the webinar. So thanks for the question. And I guess we did use up 47 minutes already, Scott. I want to try and move towards the wrap up and try and make it a little, you know, if a new customer comes to you, what's one of the first things what are you going to ask them first? What are you going to try and find out? What's the low hanging fruit? Like if I came to you and said, I'm running RabbitMQ and I'm not sure, you know, can you take a look? Like where would you go first? What would you look at? What would be your approach with me?
So it's kind of funny. I'm going to just mention as a precursor before we go there. We actually get thought of a lot of time as a professional shrink, where the RabbitMQ, like, here, have a seat on the couch. We're going to talk to you. What's your problem? Share with us what's going on. You can tell me anything. It's private.
Right.
It's, it's what's going on. So are you new to RabbitMQ? Have you been using it for a while? Where are you in the life cycle of the challenges we've seen? Are you new to it and you want to do it the best way and we're coming early on? Have you been using it and you're at the point where you've tried to solve it so long that it's become a red herring and your management and the financial side, it's almost career affecting to mention RabbitMQ because of the problems you're having and the scale in between. And with that, that goes into then, okay, do you have current production issues? Are you meeting your SLAs? Or is it functioning as you expect? What's your configuration? Then what's your application's use case? Is it meeting everything you need? Do you believe you're using the feature set the way as you expected? And as a messaging solution, what's your volume? What's your throughput? Do you really understand HA? In the classic side, it was amazing that people, it sometimes not was always obvious, but the clustering strategy, how the nodes talk to each other versus the policy of mirroring, which is how the queues are highly available. No one realizes that most customers don't realize both exist. They simply put a policy in place and don't realize that the nodes are not automatically clustering in something like the equivalent of the policy minority, which guarantees the majority up. So we'll work with the client and we'll talk with them to understand what they came to us for with the goal of finding out what they really need.
Right. Makes sense. So basically, like you said, you're the doctor for Rabbit, and you're gonna help them with everything. And Scott, how do people get a hold of you? How can you be found and contacted, you and AceMQ, when somebody wants to do an engagement on RabbitMQ? How can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So there's a couple ways to get to us. First of all, you can go to www.acemq.com and learn all about us there. We speak to a lot of it and what we offer and our capabilities and our services.
And you have a
The second one, sorry, go ahead.
there's a contact us form there.
Yes, the contact form there is available to you. And the second way is if you go to rabbitmq.com And in there, if you click on support, and this page is going to be updating in the very near term, but as your strategic partner, you're going to see us, and we're the first one listed there for the Americas. And with the MSP and the strategic partnership we have, that's going to be presented here very shortly, and it'll be very easy to get to us. And those pages, which speak to licensing, they speak to support, they speak to consulting services, will get you directly to us as well.
Sounds great. So everybody out there, I hope you appreciate the greatness that RabbitMQ can bring, and the lightweight, lean, sophisticated messaging for whether you're a trading platform with millions of trades going through that have monetary value, or you're in the IoT with oil and gas and you've got something sitting out there at the edge. Then definitely RabbitMQ is this versatile, robust, lean, lightweight system, and looking forward to engaging with all of you guys, and reach out to us. And AJ, are you able to jump in and help us with the wrap
One
up?
last thing I'd like to mention really quick
Yeah.
before we wrap, especially for those on the call. We're available. We're giving free consultations. I know a lot of you are partners we've worked with before. Free consultations. If you're not sure or you want to understand better, please feel free, reach out to us, engage us. Let us at least speak with you and share some of our knowledge and understand your use case and your needs. Take advantage of this and let us help out.
Yep, absolutely. All right, thanks everybody, and speak with you on the next webinar.
Great. Thanks,
Thanks
Ivan.
everyone for having us.
Thanks
Thank
to
you
all
so
of you
much,
guys
Alex.
today. This has been recorded and will be available shortly after the end of this presentation. We hope to see you guys at our next event. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.